Welcome to Knowledge Hub. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. A tariff is a tax placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad. When a product crosses the border, the government can charge an extra fee, which is called a tariff. This fee is usually paid by the importer, but it often gets passed along to consumers in the form of higher prices. By making foreign products more expensive, tariffs are designed to encourage people to buy American-made alternatives instead. This can help local businesses and manufacturers by giving them a competitive edge over foreign companies that might otherwise offer cheaper goods. The main goal of tariffs is to protect domestic industries and jobs from foreign competition. Supporters argue that tariffs can help keep factories open, preserve American jobs, and even strengthen national security by making sure the country can produce essential goods at home. Tariffs have been a part of American economic policy since the earliest days of the nation, sometimes sparking fierce debates about their benefits and drawbacks. But who actually gets to decide when and how tariffs are used? This question goes to the heart of how the U.S. government divides power. The Constitution gives Congress the power to tax and regulate trade with other countries. However, over the years, Congress has passed laws that let presidents impose tariffs in certain situations, especially when national security or economic emergencies are at stake. When President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other goods, it raised a major question. Did he go too far, using powers that Congress never intended to give away? Critics argued that the president was stretching the law beyond its original purpose. Many businesses and industry groups hit hard by these tariffs decided to fight back. They sued the government, arguing that the president was acting without proper congressional approval and that such broad authority could hurt the economy. The legal battle worked its way up through the courts, with different judges offering different opinions on whether the president had overstepped his authority or was simply using powers Congress had granted. Eventually, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. The justices recognized that this was about more than just trade policy. It was about the fundamental balance of power between Congress and the president. The decision would set a precedent for how much authority a president has over economic policy, and whether future presidents could act unilaterally on trade issues. Would the court rein in presidential power, or let the executive branch keep its broad trade tools? The answer would have lasting effects on how the U.S. government makes economic decisions. As the nation watched, the outcome promised to shape not just American trade policy, but the very structure of government power for years to come. President Trump's tariffs were a cornerstone of his America First agenda, targeting goods from China and even U.S. allies. The administration argued these tariffs would fix unfair trade practices and revive American manufacturing. Billions of dollars worth of products, from steel to electronics, were hit, justified under laws meant for national security. The strategy used tariffs as leverage to force better trade deals and bring jobs back home. But this aggressive approach triggered a trade war, with other countries retaliating and global supply chains disrupted. The result? Economic uncertainty, higher costs, and a fierce debate over whether tariffs helped or hurt American workers. Supporters said tariffs protected American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition, especially from countries like China. They argued that short-term pain, like higher prices, was worth it to rebuild U.S. manufacturing and secure critical industries. Opponents countered that tariffs are really a tax on Americans, raising prices for consumers and businesses. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries hurt U.S. exports, especially farmers. Many economists warned that the trade war stifled investment and cost more jobs than it saved. Businesses relying on global supply chains faced higher costs, making their products less competitive. The debate boiled down to, do tariffs protect or ultimately harm the American economy? At the heart of the legal battle was a fundamental constitutional question. Can the president impose sweeping tariffs on imports without direct approval from Congress? Challengers argued the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the exclusive power to tax and regulate trade with other nations. They said laws letting presidents act in emergencies weren't meant for broad, long-term economic policy decisions that could reshape trade. The administration insisted Congress had given the president wide discretion, especially for matters involving national security and urgent threats. Supporters claim tariffs are a vital foreign policy tool, and the president needs flexibility to act quickly in a changing world. The Supreme Court had to decide, where's the line between necessary executive action and overreach into Congress's constitutional domain? In October 2025, the Supreme Court ruled against the president's broad use of tariff power. The majority said the tariffs went beyond what Congress intended, acting more like sweeping economic policy than targeted national security measures. The court emphasized that Congress can't hand over its core powers without clear limits. Justices distinguished between narrow, emergency tariffs and broad, long-term ones that reshape the economy. The ruling clarified. For major tariff actions, the president needs explicit congressional approval. The decision didn't eliminate presidential tariff power, but set clear boundaries. The court reasserted Congress's primary role in trade and taxation, restoring a crucial check on executive authority. The Supreme Court's decision marks a significant shift in how trade policy is shaped in the United States, moving key powers back to Congress after years of executive-driven action. This means it will now be much harder for presidents to impose sweeping tariffs on their own, without congressional approval or oversight. For businesses across the country, this change brings a new sense of predictability. Companies can operate with less fear of sudden, disruptive trade policies that could upend their plans overnight. Companies that rely on imported goods and materials will be able to plan ahead with greater confidence, knowing that major changes to tariffs will require a public process and debate. For consumers, this could translate into lower prices at the checkout, as tariffs that once raised costs on everyday items are rolled back or reconsidered. Domestic industries, especially manufacturers, will face more competition from abroad, but they may also benefit from cheaper imported materials and more stable supply chains. Many sectors could see their costs drop, making it easier to invest, hire, and grow, while others may need to adapt to a more open market. The ruling also sends a clear message to U.S. allies and trading partners. American trade policy will be more stable, transparent, and less subject to abrupt changes by a single leader. This stability reassures other nations that the U.S. is committed to fair, consistent trade practices, not sudden executive actions that can disrupt global markets. As a result, the U.S. may find it easier to repair strained relationships and build new partnerships, paving the way for smoother negotiations on future trade deals. With a more predictable process, both sides can negotiate in good faith, knowing that agreements are less likely to be overturned overnight. For American families, the end of broad, unpredictable tariffs could mean relief from rising prices on everything from groceries to electronics, making household budgets stretch further. The decision also reinforces Congress's constitutional role in shaping economic policy, ensuring that major changes are debated openly and reflect the will of the people. This means that big economic shifts will require public input and approval, making the process more democratic and transparent. Internationally, the ruling promises a return to more predictable, collaborative trade policy, which is essential for global economic stability. In short, the Supreme Court's decision aims to balance economic power, encourage fair competition, and restore trust in how America makes its trade decisions. By returning authority to Congress and promoting open debate, the ruling sets the stage for a more stable, prosperous future for American businesses, workers, and families alike. This Supreme Court case is about more than just tariffs. It's a defining moment for how America governs itself and how power is distributed among its leaders. The outcome of this case reaches far beyond the immediate issue at hand, touching the very core of the nation's democratic principles and the way decisions are made at the highest levels. By clarifying the limits of presidential power, the court reaffirmed the Constitution's checks and balances, reminding everyone that no single leader can act unilaterally on matters that affect the entire country. This decision reinforces the idea that the rule of law stands above any one person or office, and that the Constitution remains the ultimate guide for American governance. Future presidents will now need Congress's buy-in for major trade moves, encouraging more collaboration, transparency, and open debate. This means that big economic decisions will be shaped by a broader range of voices, making the process more democratic and less prone to sudden, sweeping changes. The decision sets a powerful precedent for how economic power is shared, keeping it closer to the people's representatives in Congress. This shift ensures that those elected by the public have a greater say in shaping the nation's economic future, making government more accountable to its citizens. It also reassures America's allies and global markets that U.S. policy won't swing wildly with each new administration, providing much-needed stability and predictability in international relations and trade. The debate over free trade versus protectionism will certainly continue, but now it's firmly back in Congress's hands, where diverse perspectives can be heard and balanced decisions can be made for the country's long-term benefit. Ultimately, this ruling strengthens American democracy by ensuring that no single branch can act without limits, and by empowering the voices of the people through their elected representatives. It's a reminder that the foundation of the nation's government is built on balance, accountability, and the enduring principles of the Constitution.